Prometheus was born into a world of chaos and struggle, a world not yet quiet from the echoes of its own birth. His father, Iapetus, was one of the elder Titans, vast and proud, sprung from the very union of sky and earth. His mother, Clymene, was of the Oceanids, daughters of the endless sea, whose voices whispered like waves upon the shore. From them, Prometheus inherited both the weight of ancient power and the fluid adaptability of the waters. His brothers were bound to fate in ways that left no space for doubt. Atlas, the most enduring, would come to bear the heavens on his shoulders. Prometheus was consumed by violent recklessness, a flame too wild to last, struck down by Zeus himself for his arrogance. Epimetheus, gentle, forgetful Epimetheus, was gifted with hindsight alone, forever realizing too late the cost of his choices. But Prometheus was different. From his earliest days, he was marked not by brute strength or fury, but by a restless and calculating mind. He watched the world around him with eyes sharper than any blade. Where others saw only the surface of things, he peered beneath, always searching for patterns, causes, the hidden gears of existence. He asked questions where others swung fists. What makes the flame leap upward instead of down? Why does the eagle soar higher than the hawk? Why does the storm vanish as suddenly as it comes? In every answer, he discovered not only knowledge, but the power that knowledge carried. And with that realization grew a dangerous conviction. That strength was not found in the arm or the hammer, but in foresight, wit, and cunning. It was foresight that gave him his very name, Prometheus, he who thinks ahead. And it was foresight that separated him from his brothers, even from the gods themselves. The first turning of fate came not with creation, but with war. The earth shook as the Titanomachy erupted, the clash of generations that would decide the order of the cosmos. The Olympians, children of Kronos, rose in fury against their father's kin. The skies burned with lightning, the seas swelled with storms, and the mountains themselves split under the weight of divine rage. Titans hurled boulders the size of cities. Gods loosed fire and storm with every breath. It was a war that shook the very bones of the world. Prometheus stood at the threshold of choice. His blood was Titan. His lineage bound him to their side. Yet he looked upon their strength and saw futility. They fought with fury, with arrogance, with the old ways of blind power. Zeus, though young, was different. His lightning was not only destruction, but precision. His mind, not only fierce, but calculating. Atlas had demanded once, towering above him, his voice like the rumble of shifting earth.
We are Titans, born of the first age. The sky and the stone bend to our will. Will you turn against your own blood?
Prometheus had answered quietly, "Blood is nothing if it blinds us to what comes. The old order is falling, Atlas. The future belongs not to those who cling to their weight, but to those who wield cunning." And so he sided with Zeus. His counsel turned battles. He whispered strategy when all others bellowed war cries. By his guidance, the Olympians gained ground, inch by inch, until Kronos and his followers were driven down into the pit of Tartarus, sealed away in darkness by chains forged of adamantine. Zeus ascended as king of the gods, and for a time Prometheus stood close beside him, the clever counselor, the one whose wisdom had helped secure Olympus itself. Yet even then, suspicion simmered. For if Prometheus could betray his own blood once, could he not betray again? And if his mind was sharp enough to foresee the downfall of Titans, could it not one day foresee the downfall of Zeus? Prometheus turned his attention elsewhere, to a quieter act. He looked down upon the earth. With steady hands, he molded figures from the dust, kneading, shaping, giving them form in the likeness of the gods. But these were not giants. They were small, fragile, vulnerable to storm and beast. Epimetheus, his brother, had squandered gifts foolishly. To beasts he had given speed, strength, fur, wings, claws, armor. To mankind, nothing remained. But Prometheus would not let them be abandoned. He bent close and whispered to his creations the secrets of skill: how to fashion huts from branches, how to shape stone into blades, how to weave reeds into baskets, how to mark memory upon walls. He gave them the beginnings of craft, of thought, of survival. Still, they were weak. Without fire, they were shadows at the mercy of night. Without fire, their tools were crude, their food raw, their shelters brittle. And so, Prometheus pondered, his heart torn between loyalty to Olympus and compassion for the clay-born children he had shaped. Could he leave them so defenseless? Could he allow them to stumble blind in a world that crushed the weak? The rift between Prometheus and Zeus did not come all at once. At first, the two stood almost as allies. Zeus, newly crowned, looked down upon mortals with the disdain of a sovereign who sees clay and dust beneath his throne. To him, men were weak shadows, too fragile to matter. Tension first broke at Mecone, during a gathering meant to settle once and for all the question of how mortals would honor the gods. A great ox was slain, and it fell to Prometheus to divide the offering. Into one pile he placed the choicest meat, the marrow, the fat, all hidden beneath rough, unappealing sinew and skin. Into the other he placed only bare bones, whitening them with gleaming fat until they shone as if rich with promise. When the time came for Zeus to choose, Prometheus gestured toward both portions. "Great king, choose as you will. Let this choice decide what mortals shall forever offer in sacrifice." Zeus, his pride sharp as lightning, did not pause to question. He chose the shining pile, but when he pulled back the fat, what lay beneath was nothing but bones. The gods murmured, some hiding laughter behind their hands. Mortals, on the other hand, rejoiced in secret, for from that day forward the best of their feasts would be theirs to eat, while only bones and smoke would rise to Olympus. Zeus's jaw tightened, his eyes, bright as stormfire, fixed upon Prometheus. He had been mocked, not by an equal, but by one who owed him loyalty. A scar of humiliation carved itself into his memory, and Zeus, who never forgave, let his rage grow like thunder waiting to break. He withheld the one thing that mattered most, fire. Without it, mankind was condemned once more to crawl in darkness. Winter winds cut like knives, food spoiled or remained raw and bitter. Night beasts prowled, and men had no flame to drive them back. Without fire, the fragile creatures Prometheus had nurtured seemed destined to wither and vanish. It was more than Prometheus could bear, and so, under cloak of night, he ascended Olympus. Past the halls of the gods he slipped, until he came to the forge of Hephaestus, where fires roared and sparks leapt like stars. There he stole a fragment of the divine flame, cradled it within the hollow stalk of fennel, and fled down the mountainside to earth. When the mortals awoke, they beheld a miracle. Fire danced in their hands, golden and alive. It roared in their hearths, it hardened their clay pots, it tempered their tools into bronze. With fire, they cooked, they forged. Smoke rose from their villages, as if in defiance, curling toward the very heavens that had denied them. In that moment, mankind was no longer a trembling shadow, but a force stirring toward destiny. And Zeus, from his throne, saw it all. The thunder rolled, the skies darkened.
So,
Zeus spoke, his voice booming across Olympus.
the trickster dares again. He thinks himself wiser than the king of gods. He thinks his love for clay will outweigh my wrath. Let him learn what it means to defy me.
He summoned Kratos, and Bia force and might terrible beings, who carried out his will without hesitation. The forge Hephaestus he turned as well, the god whose forge had been the source of Prometheus' theft. "Forge me chains," Zeus commanded, "unbreakable, eternal. They will bite into his flesh as the eagle tears it, and they will never loosen." Prometheus was seized. He did not struggle, though his eyes burned with quiet defiance. Carried across the world, he was brought to the far edge of the Caucasus Mountains, where cliffs rose sheer against the endless sky. Winds howled like wolves, and no mortal could ever tread. There they bound him, hammered the chains deep into stone, leaving him stretched against the rock, exposed to sun and storm alike. From the heavens descended the eagle, vast, terrible, its wings casting a shadow across the peaks. It drove its beak into his side, tearing at his liver. Prometheus cried out, not for mercy, but in pain sharpened by fury. Each night, his body healed. Each dawn, the torment began anew. Day after day, year after year, century upon century, the cycle repeated. Still, he endured. His screams echoed through the valleys, but his spirit did not break. Mortals kindled their fires, warmed their homes, and forged their futures, while their benefactor bled upon the stone. But Zeus's vengeance was not finished. To punish mortals themselves, he ordered another creation. From the hands of Hephaestus came a woman of breathtaking beauty, shaped from clay as man had once been shaped. To her, the gods gave gifts. Aphrodite granted irresistible charm. Hermes bestowed wit and guile. Athena gave skill with crafts, and Zeus himself gave a jar, sealed and forbidden. She was Pandora, the all-gifted. When at last the jar was opened, what spilled forth was no blessing. Sickness, toil, sorrow, grief, all the miseries that cling to mankind spread across the world. Only one thing remained at the bottom: hope, fragile and defiant, sealed inside as if even Zeus could not quite banish it. Thus fire had been given, but suffering had come with it. Mortals whispered Prometheus's name as both savior and cause of their woes. Zeus thundered in triumph, believing the balance restored, and Prometheus, bound upon his rock, endured still. The centuries dragged on. The Caucasus stood as Prometheus's prison, its peaks piercing the sky like spears of stone. The sun burned without mercy, searing his skin until it cracked, only for the eagle to return at dawn with its dreadful hunger. He scorned Hermes when the messenger of the gods came to demand he yield, to reveal secrets that even Zeus did not know. For Prometheus possessed foresight, knowledge of a prophecy Zeus dreaded, that one day a child born to him might bring about his downfall, as he himself had once overthrown Kronos. Prometheus held that secret, and he would not give it up. "Tell me," Hermes sneered, his voice sharp as the crack of a whip, "will you not bow? Will you not give the King of Heaven what he demands?" Prometheus lifted his gaze, though blood still trickled down his side. Bow to power that fears knowledge, to thunder that trembles at foresight? No, Hermes, I will not barter truth for chains. Tell your master this, there is a price even Zeus cannot escape, a fate he cannot unmake. Go then, he said, tell your king that Prometheus endures still. At times, the daughters of Oceanus, the Oceanids, drew near, their voices a mournful chorus. They wept at his suffering, urging him to repent, to soften his words, to make peace with Olympus. But Prometheus only shook his head. Would you have me silent? Would you have me grovel from mercy I do not seek? No, better the rock, the chain, the eagle's beak, than a coward's tongue. Let Zeus hear my cries. Let Olympus know that one Titan's defiance cannot be broken. He had endured longer than any mortal mind could fathom, and yet destiny had not forgotten him. For one day, footsteps echoed through the wilderness. It was Heracles, son of Zeus, wandering the earth in his labors. His bow rested upon his back, his arrows tipped with deadly force. He had slain lions, wrestled monsters, and journeyed farther than any man. And now, by chance, or by fate, he came upon the bound Titan. At first, Heracles did not believe what he saw. A figure, gaunt yet unbroken, stretched against the rock. Chains shimmered with divine fire. Above, an eagle circled, shrieking as it descended once more to feed. But before it struck, Heracles drew his bow. The arrow flew, straight and sure, piercing the eagle through the heart. The beast screamed, flailed its wings, and fell lifeless upon the stones below. Now he simply tightened his bowstring and strode onward, his shadow vanishing down the slopes. In the plays of Aeschylus, Prometheus stood as the voice of defiance against tyranny. His chains were not merely iron, but the bonds of oppression. His cry against Zeus echoed in the theaters of Athens as a warning to any ruler who confused power with justice. In the end, Prometheus was not merely a character of myth. He was a reflection of humanity itself, fragile, flawed, suffering, but unyielding, ever reaching for fire, ever paying the price for daring to dream. And so the story lingers, in the flicker of a torch, in the spark struck from stone, in the flame of every lamp and forge, his presence remains.